Yvonne Garcia Zaher. What a pleasure to speak to Yvonne. She's a writer. She's a meditator. Fascinating background. The stories that I read that got me interested in her were short stories about her brothers. Excuse me, one about her brother and another one about the area in Los Angeles and Southern California. Fascinating. Her style is very unique. It's, you can't say it's nonfiction because she changes all the names, but she's got a wonderful approach. One of them was turned into a play. She just released her first book of fiction, the Annabus Chronicles, and it's this fantasy world of werewolves and vampires. And her process, I open up the conversation with, where is the reader? Where do you have the reader when you write? Are you concerned about where they are, about how they're reading and where they are in your journey? Her answer is absolutely fascinating. I was shocked by it. And where the destination of the stories, where they go, writing is always incredibly fascinating to me. And what you do with the blank page, turns out she's never had writer's block, but just her story and how she got to where she is by writing. And meditation takes a large part of her life. She has an actual process. She calls it the 3-6-9 method. She just gives it away for free. It's wonderful. If you meditate, if you don't, consider it with this method as well. Great conversation with Yvonne. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission, how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision, growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. I'm very excited to talk to you, Yvonne Zaher. I really appreciate it. When you're writing, how important is the reader to you?
You know what? I never looked at it that way, but not very important at all.
Yeah.
That sounds awful, but I don't even think about that at all.
Quentin Tarantino has a great quote where he says, verbatim, but he says, I make movies for myself and anybody else can come watch if they'd like.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But, with my writing, I have like 3 types of writing. I don't know if you looked at my website or not,
Yes.
but my first manuscript was very dramatic and tragic and true. And I never published it. And shortly after that, I started writing the short stories and 2 plays that got produced. And I said, I'm going to do something fun. Then I decided to do the supernatural fantasy.
Yeah.
But you're going to laugh when I tell you that even that turned out to be a book about energy. It's crazy.
So all the writings still have a basic underpinning and theme of energy.
They do, but and it's really strange because when I started writing the first manuscript about my life and how I turned to meditating and how it changed my life, I started out just writing about meditation, and that turned to energy because during the course of writing the book, I don't even know how to explain it. It just started all about change your energy, change your life, and you can change your energy through meditation. It's very simple. To me, it's a key of life, I feel.
Yeah, and you have a mythology, a method, an actual meditation practice there. I want to get to that in a moment, but getting back to what the reader is. So when you reread your prose, your words, you never say, well, how will the reader interpret this? Maybe they'll get confused by this, or do you ever do that kind of editing?
Well, I only do that editing when they're editing it, and I have to sit there when they're editing it because the person who edits my work, if I leave them by themselves, it'll change everything. So yes, I do sit there after it's all done. Yes, because he'll say, that doesn't make sense to me. Well, we have to agree on how to change it. But
Hmm,
I write a lot like I speak, and I know that's probably not good, but
right.
mm,
Yeah, I do too as well. I'm a much better speaker than I am writer, but I can use inflection and I could use my hands and I could, look a certain way and have all these nonverbal. How do you convey that with your words?
I don't know. Words to me are their energy, and I,
Hmm.
I don't even know how to explain it. Everything is energy to me now. I used to curse a lot, mind you, until I realized why would I put out that energy? Because everything you say has an energy value,
Mm.
a vibration. Why would I keep cursing and saying, putting out that energy? And it's the same thing within my books, because in that book there are some really bad scenes in it, and don't ask me why, but there are. And I was very careful the way I wrote those too, or even the love scenes. I was very, very careful how I wrote them.
What do you mean by careful?
I really thought about the words that I wanted to say to describe what was happening. I didn't want to be vulgar. Not that I'm a prude, or I can read things like that, but for some odd reason, I couldn't write that in a crude way. Uh,
Mm.
I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but
So you didn't want in one of your short stories there's a violent scene with guns and at a wedding, and so you didn't want the violence to be the main theme. You just wanted the energy to be there and the humanity. So I'm trying to help there. Is that it? Was that
no,
what you're doing?
no. You know what? We're talking about two different things. When I
Mm,
write those stories, I write them very accurate. I'm not changing things around a lot. I'm writing what I saw, what I felt, what I've experienced. I was talking about the fantasy book.
I see. You're very careful because you don't want to take the reader in a direction you don't want them to go.
Right. And like I say, because it's fantasy, I can't, I don't know. It's quite different for me when I
Mm.
write those other stories as opposed to the fantasy. When I write those other stories, those are from my heart. They're heartfelt. They're things that I felt, I saw. And that's what I do is I remember it. And they're not exactly the same because I wouldn't do that to people. I change things around and names and whatnot. But most of those stories that I've written are true to some extent.
So, Yvonne, is it the difference between fiction and nonfiction?
The short stories,
Yeah, the way your approach, the way your methodology.
yeah, I guess I would have to say it's a combination because most of it's based on fact, but I'm
Right.
not being exactly factual because people don't want their stuff out there. And if I told a story exactly the way it happened, everybody would know what I'm talking about.
Mm.
You know,
And what is your routine? Are you pen to paper?
yes, I am pen to paper, especially when I'm writing the short stories. Yeah.
And do you first do you storyboard? Do you try to get your
No,
themes across first? Really?
no, I don't. And that's why I'm sure that there will be people that read my book and think, well, this person is not a very um, experienced writer.
Hmm.
But yeah, I didn't even like the book, I didn't even like make a draft. or anything like that. I just decided, you know what, I'm going to write a fun werewolf story. And I just started writing, and I didn't even know how it was going to go or what was going to happen. And like I said, eventually it just turned into a story about energy. It's the second one is going to be really about energy. It's actually like a dark mirror of what's happening in the world in a
Wow.
weird way. I don't know.
So your fiction, you're talking about your book that was just released.
Mhm.
Congratulations, of course,
Thank
right?
you.
The Annabis Chronicles, right? The Council. And so you have these characters and you don't know where they're going to go.
No, I don't. you know, I have a funny story
Amazing.
with that. I had a friend who kept insisting, "Did you put my name in your book?" I said, "No." She said, "Why not? Why are you being like that?" I said, "Because I don't know what's going to happen to them." And I had started to use my granddaughter's name as the main character. Then something bad happened. I had to go back and take her name off of every single thing.
Wow.
So I said to myself, I'm not going to put anybody's name that I know. And so I kept telling her, Rachel, I don't want to put your name. She insisted. A new character came up. I put her name, and then something really bad happens to her. And I told you, and I'm not going back to change it now. It was hilarious.
So where do the characters come from? Where did they get
I don't
inspired by
know.
real people? Their stories? They just appear to you. Dreams while you're eating, while you're walking.
Well, no, it's like when I'm writing. Originally, everybody thinks that I did Anubis. You know who Anubis is, right? Do you?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Oh, well, he's the Egyptian god of the underworld.
Ah.
And so, what happened was, my husband's from Egypt. And when I went to Egypt, I've been there several times. I was very fascinated with, the history and
Yeah.
everything. When I was starting to write my book, I don't know how I saw it, but it was like a freak, a little accident, that Anubis was actually a wolf and not a dog because everybody calls him a dog. They assume he's a dog because he kind of looks like a dog.
Yeah,
Then
the
I went
covers. Oh.
then I went down that rabbit hole and I researched it, and he was a wolf, not a dog.
Hmm.
And then as I researched it, I found out that down by Aswan in the city, Valley of the Kings, there's an old city and it's called Lycopolis, and that translates to City of Wolves. So that's what started me with that theory or that storyline. And I know it sounds bizarre, but everything in my book has a little bit of base of truth in it. And I know that sounds weird because it's about werewolves and vampires and all that, but there's a bit of truth in all of it. And so that's how I went down that road, you know.
Yvonne, help me understand. So these characters come to you, then they start interacting, and they're interacting on the page while you're writing. You have no
Yes.
forethought.
So I'm telling you, Joe, when I went back and read, like, I'll write a quarter of it and then I'll go back and read it. And I think to myself, really, I wrote that? Because
Wow.
I'm not, I don't know how to explain it. It's really weird. I feel like the book was channeled, and I wouldn't say ever in my life like I'm a channeler. I didn't even know if I believed in channelers, but I felt like it was channeled.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you you truly didn't know what the fate was. And then how did you know when to stop?
I didn't. I did not think that I could write 20,000 words. Do you know when I stopped? When it became 89,000 words.
Wow.
I said, I gotta, I'm just going to make a second book. So I tried to tie up as many loose ends as I could, and then the rest will be in the second book. And the second book to me, I think is going to be more, I don't know. I have a byline that I like. It's, magic is everywhere. And sometimes you'll find universal truths where you least expect to. And that's what I think my book is.
Yvonne, there's a famous story about Bob Dylan writing Along the Watchtower and releasing it on one of his albums, and then Jimi Hendrix listening to it. And within 2 weeks or a short amount of time, he performs it live, and Bob Dylan is there and says, that's his song. It was never my song. That's the way it was supposed to be performed, and never performed it again. So he believes that it came through him, but it wasn't his. Is it what you have there when you felt this energy and you're writing pen to paper? I mean, it's completely inspired, correct?
It is, and as I get older and see different things and talk to different people, I think that right now in this time, especially, it's probably always been that way, but in this time especially, there's things that need to get out. And if you think about it and you don't know and you don't do it, the same thought will go to someone else and then they'll do it. And I think that's the way ideas and even stories get out. I mean, I don't know. If you ever get a chance to read my book, and I didn't think of this, I don't feel like I thought of it myself, but there's things like the monarchies in my book, like, all the kings and queens of our land now are really evil elves. And that's why they marry within each other. But after I wrote that and read that, and I thought, oh, there's going to be a lot of people who aren't going to like that. But,
Mm.
you know, and
Have
that's
you ever
why they
experienced? I'm sorry.
go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Have you ever experienced writer's block?
Not really. Not for that book. No, no. I'm writing the sequel now. I'm going a little slower because I'm also writing what I call as a companion novella. There was a character in the first book that she comes out in it quite a bit, but you really don't understand her backstory. So I am writing well, it's not going to be that short, but I wanted it to be a short novella of how she got to where she was when she entered that book. Her how she became a vampire, what happened to her, and why she is the way she is. Because all my characters are they have a dark side, but deep down, all of them have a little bit of light. Well, most of them. There's one character that I haven't found his light yet, but I'm sure it's there. Maybe. I don't know.
And what called you to make a novella just about this one character?
Because she vowed to never love anybody ever again. And see, I'll be giving away a lot of my story, but what happened is she met her soulmate, and that changed everything for her. But she'd been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years just without love. Like she didn't want it, she didn't need it. But when you tell someone's backstory, and that's like us as humans, you see, I had an aunt who was very mean and bitter, but when you know her life, then you understand why she was like that. And had it gone a different way, maybe she wouldn't have been that way. I don't know. I choose to see the good in everybody. Oh, I
Right.
try to. But we
Okay.
all have darkness.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually think in one of my meditations, are you a meditator?
I am.
So I'm sure you have experienced this phenomena as all meditators have. Sometimes when you're meditating, something will come to you, a thought, a truth, something. If you don't write it, the minute you stop meditating, it's lost forever.
Wow.
And in one of those instances, I had to stop my meditating because I did not want to forget what I was told, which was the amount of a darkness that somebody has equals the amount of goodness that they are potential to have, and
Mhm.
vice versa. And I believe that. I do. I do. Go back to the people that I grew up around, all the gang violence. I saw people do horrible things, but that's what they chose with what they had. I'm not saying that it was right or anything, but what I'm saying is those who have a potential to be dark also have a potential to be light, and the equal amount. I believe that.
Does true evil exist, Yvonne?
In my opinion, That's a very hard question because
Yeah.
it is a matter of how you see things. If we all created this existence, our human existence, for the purpose of learning, then I would say no.
Mm.
Because if I'm going to get murdered by you, maybe before we incarnated into this world, maybe we agreed. And the person who
Hmm.
agreed to murder me, that person is doing a great sacrifice, because as the energy of love, which I believe we all come from, that's it hurts. It hurts to do that to someone. But if somebody did it for the purpose of learning, then no, they're not evil. It's kind of like, parents who abuse their children. What if that was a sacred agreement before you were born? I mean, I don't know, but I think about all that a lot. I think about
Talk-
that.
yeah, I do too. Because you know you have to go to the extreme. Hitler, right? You have to go to these Stalin. You have to go to these people who are responsible for killing millions of people, and it's a horrible, horrible thing to think about.
It is, but think about, history unfortunately repeats itself all the time.
Yeah,
Think about this. After the fact, years from now, people are going to say, because that there's still 1,500 children missing from the border. People
yeah.
are going to say, how could those people let that happen? I cried all the time about it, but what could I do? I wish there would have been something that I could do, but good people let it happen and
Mm.
didn't do nothing about it. It's the same way probably when Hitler was around, or all those people. People don't know how to stop it, so they don't. And I don't know. I don't know. I question that a lot,
Mm.
because we allowed a lot of things to happen. We allow a lot of things to happen now.
And we do. We certainly
Hmm.
do.
Hmm.
You talk about meditation. You have the 369
Hmm.
meditation method.
I do. And I created that for my first book, the manuscript that I didn't publish, because I so want everybody to meditate that I created a method where you could meditate for 3 minutes as a guided meditation, 6 minutes as a mantra, and then 9 minutes silence.
Hmm.
If it's too much for you, you could stop at the 3 minutes or stop at the six or the nine, whatever you want. But then you can find out what meditation works for you, because there's hundreds of kinds of meditations.
Oh yeah.
It doesn't, so you can, some people like just the guided ones, especially I think new people. They like the guided meditations. And then you can move on to the mantras, and depending, they could be affirmations or mantras, or, whatever you choose to say. Uh, but in reality, it's the silence one but that takes a while to get to the point where you want to stay in silence for an hour or so.
Yeah,
A
it's
lot of.
certainly. I remember the hardest part for me to overcome was separating my thoughts from myself. So the analogy, when I was doing guided or assisted for a while, it was, you're on a hill looking at traffic going both ways, cars, and those cars are your thoughts. You're away from them and you're looking at them. So to kind of separate yourself. And I set the timer for 10, 15 minutes, and I'm always surprised when it goes off. I said, wow, that was so quick, so quick, and I try to do it every day, but it definitely helps. It resets. I also journal. Do you journal as a writer? That's got to
Hmm.
be,
I
yeah,
do.
you do. And you journal in the first person.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, I do.
me too.
But back to the meditation. When I wanted to start meditating, it was way back in the early 70s,
Mm.
and I was brought up Catholic. And well, I searched because of a tragedy that happened to my brother, and I was very mad at God, very mad at God, and mad at the Catholic Church, and mad at everybody. Anyways, make a long
Mm.
story short, I thought that I couldn't meditate for many, many, many years, because I couldn't shut off my mind. And back then we didn't have computers to look up things. So I would try and I couldn't do it. I would try, I couldn't do it. what I learned to do was I named my bad thoughts, because it seemed to me that every time I tried to meditate, the worst thoughts would come into my mind. My brother was going to get killed. My kids were going to get
Mm,
kidnapped. I named them. I named the bad thoughts, and I would tell them to go away, and I wouldn't engage with them. And that's how I learned to meditate. I just didn't engage with the thoughts. And I would say, chupacabra, go away. I called them chupacabras because the chupacabra sucks all your life energy. So
yeah.
that's what I called them. And go away. And eventually they did.
Oh, so you gave just a blanket name to all the evil thoughts, and you
Thoughts.
told them to go away. Oh. You mentioned, so yeah, the 2 short stories were just, that I read, the stories of the heart and soul, the Barrio series. So you mentioned your brother where, the main character, has a remote control, and she's going through, the television, and she's
Oh,
seeing her brother live in the past and the current and the future and the trials that the brother goes through trying to follow his father, and his father wasn't the best role model, and the tension between the sister and the brother, and it's just wonderful. And so this is what you say when you wrote from the heart, stories that you saw, that you felt.
yeah. Well, that story actually is based on all truths because it is my brother's story. And that conversation was supposed to be a conversation that you wish you could have after the
Right.
person was deceased. And that was made into a short play. Do you know, you don't know how many people came up to me and said, crying, it reminded me of my brother. Because it's the same stories over and over, you know. It really is, you know. And people could look at my brother and say, oh, you know, that's a very low class, ugly person or scary person or whatever. But my brother wasn't. All the children and all the dogs and cats loved him. That says something,
Mm.
you know. He was a kind hearted person. Did he do horrible things? Yeah. But he was a kind hearted, loving brother. So
and
life is.
and in the end, his father, your father, got what he wanted. He wanted his son to be like him, but perhaps he was actually worse.
He was worse because my father never went to prison. You know, my father was just the way he was, but my brother just, you know, went out of control and everything he did, and he had a very sad life.
And in the hills, we see what Los Lomos is the hills in Spanish. There's a wedding, and then the main character is Anthony Roberta Garza, and some things happen there. I want the readers or whoever's listening to read it. But again, this is a story that comes really home hard to your
Yes,
heart.
yes. Because in that story, I wanted to really emphasize this guy didn't want to be like that. He
Right.
didn't, but it like sucked him in. You know, and at the end, he says, Lomas won. I'm from Lomas now. And that's his life after that. I've known people who've gone to jail for something stupid and wound up staying 10, 15 years. You know, but again, I take a step back now and I look at it. Why did that happen? Why did they allow that, their life to be that way? Or not allow it. I mean, I do say allow it because even me with my issues, I know that in some energetic way, I'm creating what is wrong with me. I just have to figure out what it is so I can try to change it. You know, I think we're all responsible for our lives. Period.
Right. Ultimately, certainly in the eyes of the law, we are. Whether we want to take, responsibility ourselves, I guess, is the ultimate question.
But it's easier not to.
Yeah, it certainly is.
Hmm. It really is. And
Your book that's just released, right? The Annabis
Mhm.
Chronicles is a complete, departure from everything that you've written before. I mean, it's fiction, it's a fantasy world, it's a magical world, it's werewolves, it's like you say, Egyptian characters. Would you have been able to write what you did in this if you hadn't wrote those other stories?
I don't think I would have thought about writing that if I hadn't wrote those other ones.
Mm,
I don't know, but I enjoyed writing the Anubis Chronicles. That was fun. It wasn't um, hurtful. You know what I mean? My brother's story when they put it on play, produced it. It was heartbreaking. Every
right.
single person in my family and people I didn't even know were crying a lot. It's something very heartfelt. Whereas in the Anubis Chronicles, like I say, I get away with it's not really real. So even if bad things happen, it's not really real.
Mm.
you know. Whereas real life can be so tragic,
Is it?
unfortunately.
Yeah. Is it less difficult to write fiction than nonfiction for
Oh
you?
yes, yeah. Oh no, not a fantasy is easier to write.
Fantasies easier to write
Yes,
because you don't have any
yes.
limits,
No limits and well, you just it's not real.
right?
you know. If you write a story about a serial killer that could be real, that's real. That's oh, I could never do
Mm,
that. But if it's about vampires and werewolves and I mean, it could be real, sort of, but not
sure.
really. uh,
When something bad happens, you have three choices. You can either let it define you, let it destroy you, or you can let it strengthen you.
absolutely,
This is what you put on
absolutely.
Instagram and Facebook. Yeah.
Oh, did I? I must have because I believe that.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't
I'm
make it up.
I'm a real how do you say it? Not very good at social media and all that.
Ah,
Sometimes when I see something or I want to say something, I'll do it, but I don't know who sees it or who doesn't see it. I don't know. I don't know.
yeah. Let it define you, let it destroy you, or let it strengthen you. And again, like you mentioned before, you have, you take responsibility. You decide what it's going to do for you, to you.
I do. I do. I could be a miserable person
Mm,
because there's a lot of things physically that um, have happened to me, and but I choose not to because I wake up every day. I have a beautiful family. I have a beautiful home. I have
mm.
so many things that I'm blessed with. So why would I focus on little things like I can hardly walk or that I'm in pain all the time? I just don't focus on that. Well, I try not to.
Is the publishing world or industry fair to writers?
You know, that's a whole other story. I don't know. I mean, I know that a traditional publisher will not pick you up if you don't have 100,000 followers. So the chances, I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't even try to go traditional
Hmm.
because I have 250 followers. What you know what I mean? My book has been selling, but I don't know if it's word of mouth or I don't know why, but um, yeah, it's hard. I mean, anybody can write a book nowadays, but there's a lot of scammers out there, a lot. So you got to be really careful.
Scammers, how so?
Oh, they say that they'll publish your book, you pay them all this money, and then they put out a shoddy product. I've heard. I belong to a lot of authors uh, groups, and
Mm.
I every day you hear somebody who got scammed, and they just didn't do what they promised, and people pay them a lot of money. So it's you got to be really careful,
What should
really
people look
careful.
out for?
They call them vanity publishers. The vanity publishers are really bad. It's better to just either, well, see, you get somebody like me, and I'm not good at computers. I do have to pay everybody to format the book and
Mm.
make me a cover and all that because I don't know how to do it. Young people could probably do it themselves if they wanted to, but I certainly can't.
Do you recommend writing for people?
I do. I do. I think that, I mean, I should talk. So I'll talk a little bit about why I started writing. And
Please.
so I had a business that I was making really, really good money. I've been a self-taught person my whole life, and I was always landed into good positions where I can make a lot of money. But when I was 12 years old, I was diagnosed with scoliosis. Well, my parents took me to the doctor. They wanted to check me every 6 months, but I hated what they did to me. So I tore up all the papers, and my parents, for some reason, never asked. They never took me back again. When I turned 23, I was having a lot of issues, and I wasn't even heavy then. I was like 118, 119, but I was having a lot of issues, back issues, and I went to a teaching hospital where they just did scoliosis patients, and they were really happy to find me because I was kind of an oddity that I had such a large degree of an angle, but they wanted to do surgery. They wanted to put a Harrington rod on my back. Make a really long story short, that didn't happen. So then at 23, they told me I had a 46-degree angle, and I didn't do the surgery. There was nothing else I could do. I ignored it for 40 years. Or no, 50, no, 35 years, until that day at court, I could not walk. And what happened to me was I was so busy doing so many other things that I didn't have time to write. So the universe said to me, well, now you can't do anything else but write. So that's what I'm doing because there's not much else I can do at this point. So I write, and I don't know. I have to believe that it's for a reason. We'll see when the second book comes out
Hmm.
if it helps anybody.
So you mentioned before everything is energy. So the energy, are you a spiritual person, Yvonne?
Spiritual, yes. Religious, no.
Hmm.
Not no more.
What's the difference between spirituality and energy?
Nothing really. I don't see a difference between spirituality and energy because spirituality is taking responsibility for all your actions, and all your actions create the energy that you are and
Hmm.
surround yourself with. If you surround yourself with, say you go to church and there's a lot of pettiness and this and that and that and that, is that raising your energy? No. But if you surround yourself and try to help as many people as you can and always have a good attitude about things, that's spirituality. It's keeping your energy vibration high. That's what it is to me.
You believe in karma?
I do, but not in the way that most people do. People think like if something bad happens to you, if you do something bad's going to happen to you. I mean, it is that way in ways, but it isn't. It's kind of like it's cause and effect. Whatever you put out, you'll bring. The universe doesn't punish. It's not punishing. It's just if you drop a glass of water, what's going to happen? The water's going to fall and it's going to hit the floor. It's not a bad thing. It's just that's what's going to happen when you turned over the cup and dropped the water. So it's not a punishment. It's just that's what happens when that happens. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Cause and effect. What kind of energy do you wish the readers to receive when reading your work?
I want, okay, for my fantasy or my
Let's start with the fantasy, then go to the nonfiction.
okay, with the fantasy, I mean, like I said, at first it was just going to be a fun thing to do. Then it turned into something else. So the deep message that I hope people get out of that book, that series, is that everything is energy, and you have the ability to raise your energy anytime you want. We can choose to elevate our energy, or we can choose to lower it, depending on our words, our actions, our thoughts. That's what I hope everybody gets out of it. And by the second book, it'll be talk more about energy. Because in the first book, what happens is one of the witches that's in the book, she can see energy. So she sees, like, if she sees what it does to people before, like in that genre, the only creatures that have a destined mate are werewolves.
Mm.
And they say when a werewolf finds their mate, they become one. Well, so she realizes that it's not just werewolves that have destined mates, that we all have destined mates. And once you meet the person you were supposed to be with, your energies merge together and there's no separating them.
Mm.
But it's hard to meet. And I do believe that. Even in truth, I believe that there's certain people, your energies mesh, and you become either lifelong friends, lovers, husband, wife, whatever the case may be, depending on the relationship that in this lifetime you choose to have. I mean,
Mm.
have you ever met? Do you have a good friend, say, that you guys are in sync because your energies mesh? They mesh. That's just it's very very simple. You know,
Mm.
have you ever, love at first sight? A lot of times people say that's just an attraction. Well, it can be, but once you touch that person and you know whether it's just an attraction or that's just somebody that overwhelms you, that's probably your mate. I mean, there's so much to know and learn about energy. You know, energy is everything, everywhere. So how can it not impact us and our relationships? It has to.
But Yvonne, is there gray? So you kind of there's good bad energy, there's bad energy, but is there any gray in the middle that's just it's not serving? It's a little bit in between. Is you're kind of maybe I'm misreading, but it seems like everything is a bit black and white.
No. Well, because, okay, let's take your person that doesn't like to think about these things. They like to watch TV and eat the food they like and visit with their friends and talk about sports and that. Those people, there's nothing, I'm not saying they're bad or they have bad energy, but they probably have like a neutral energy. It's
Mm.
not bad. It's not, maybe they go highs and lows depending on how they are. But people who think about it, people who ponder what life really is about and want to know about yourself and your own energy, those are the people that they can either raise their energy or they can lower their energy. And
Mm.
I'll tell you what, and I'll tell you why I know that. I know that whatever equal you have to goodness, you have the same equal to badness and evil. One time, I'm not going to say who because again, people don't want to. Somebody very close to me um, was targeted uh, to be killed. And she was a young woman that's very close to me. She was only 17 at the time. Well, she got away. Okay. My first instinct, Joe, and I'm not proud of this. I'm not. But I'm honest. My first instinct was I called my father and I said, we have to kill them, the whole family. That's what I
Oh.
said. And then I said to myself about 2 days later when I calmed down, because she got away, she didn't get really hurt. I said, what did you just say? What did you say? You know, and I called my dad up, well, no, I was just upset. I was just mad. But in that moment, when I found out what they did, that's what I thought. I'm not going to lie. That's what I thought. So I know that I have that in me.
Mm.
But do you allow it? Do you feed on it? Do
Mm.
you baby it? That's the key. We all have it, whether you admit it or not. What's that saying? We all have thoughts that can shame hell. So, I
Is your
mean,
process more art or science?
on meditation?
No, on writing.
Oh, more art, I believe.
I believe generally your life is more art than science. Am I wrong about that?
Probably. You're not wrong. No, no, probably. I've always had a tendency to think a lot, daydream, wonder, like I say, wonder about things.
Yeah. Go with
You
your
know.
gut.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I originally asked about, about your process of writing, what you want the reader to come away with in the fiction book. How about in the hills and the brother and in your kind of nonfiction real life? What do you want the reader to come away with when reading those?
I want the reader to understand that nothing is ever exactly what you think it is. I mean, it's kind of the same thing as you see a nice middle class, say white family. They look perfect, but inside the house there's
Turmoil.
molestation
Yeah.
and abuse. But people don't see that because they only see what they see. And it's the same thing, but the opposite is
Mm.
people see a certain, my husband's like that. My husband, he, how we got together, that's a freaking miracle because we're like polar opposites. Let me tell you, me and my husband are polar opposites. And there was a lot of things in my life that he didn't understand or like, but he has to learn. He had to learn and has to learn. Nothing is ever exactly like it seems. I know some really, really freaking awesome, good people. You would look at them and not think they are, but they are. You know, I want people to see people, not see the outside of people. I want people
Mm.
to see the inside of people. That, but I've always had that gift, to be honest with you. I can probably talk to a a vagrant on the street and I'll see something wonderful in them. Or I could talk to a very, very, very rich person and see something wonderful.
Mm.
Or they give me something of value as far as knowledge, not material, but knowledge. Because we can learn from everybody, believe it or not. Everybody has something to give.
Before we started recording, I mentioned to you that as I get older, I have more questions than I have answers, and I'm not sure if that's wisdom or not, but it's certainly opens my curiosity. So I started my business in the '90s. I was very excited. I was working way too hard, Yvonne. I was not paying attention to myself, and before you know it, after many many months, I was up to 340 pounds, and the doctor said to me, my daughter was just born and said to me, if you don't lose the weight, you're never going to see her graduate. And it's something I needed to hear. So I took the next 7 months, and I lost about 130 pounds. And people always ask me, they want a quick answer. How'd you do it? Losing weight, $1 billion industry, right? And they want a quick answer. And I just say discipline. You want to lose weight, it's just discipline. You got to get routine, you got to get focus, etc. All parts of discipline. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life, Yvonne.
Well, it was funny because when you contacted me and I looked at your stuff and I started listening to your podcast, and it was mostly, you talk a lot about discipline. Well, I'm the most undisciplined person you could meet,
Really?
except when I decided to meditate. I did not give an inch. And let's go back. You said when the doctor told you about you not being around for your daughter, that ignited something in you, a passion in you of something that was very important. So
Yes.
you made yourself disciplined to do that. So I made myself disciplined because I got up to 320 pounds. I couldn't walk. I couldn't move. I was on 5 medications. And well, see, when it's something's important enough to you, you find the discipline. That's what it is. It has to be that important to you. I didn't want to die. I have a granddaughter that I love dearly and I need to be around for her. I got off all the pain medications except one that I take to this day if I need to, if I'm going to go somewhere. But they had me on five, Joe, five narcotics.
Wow.
At 320 something pounds, I was on five narcotics. I stopped them all. And you want to know something? And I'm not saying anybody should do this. Nobody
Mm.
should do this. But I'm a very I don't know if it
Stubborn?
doesn't have. I don't know. Yeah, stubborn. I just stopped them like that, and I was getting withdrawals. And my daughter called me. She goes, "Mom, what is wrong?" And I said, "Oh, my legs are shaking and I can't." She goes, "You didn't stop taking the medication just like that, did you?" I said, "Yeah, I did." She was like, "Are you crazy?" But I did. I stopped taking them. I used essential oils. I stopped taking them, and guess what, Joe? I did start losing a lot of weight
Mm.
organically, almost.
Mm.
You know, uh, I had a setback, and that's why I didn't publish that book, was because I can't total healing when I haven't really healed myself completely. But I'm off five medications. I only take one, and uh, and I'm still here, and I'm still thriving, and I still contribute to life.
You certainly do. You certainly do. So when you're writing like that and the characters are coming to you and they're deciding their own fate, there's not a focus, there's not a discipline that's involved at all. You don't see it that way.
No, I don't.
Hmm. You're doing the opposite. You're just letting go.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yes. I've been labeled as untrainable many times by different people who wanted me to do something. but but I don't know. That's just the way I've always been. Even in my job, all the jobs I've ever had in my life, I have freedom because I cannot be contained.
Mm.
You know, it's just certain people have certain things that they just cannot abide by.
Hmm.
You know,
Yvonne G. Zaher, what motivates you?
I, when you said it, the first thing that came to my mind was love, love of everything. Have you ever loved a person you didn't know and just saw that minute and said, "I feel so much love for that person"? Has that ever happened to you?
Yes, it has. Yes, it
That
has.
when that happens to you, you understand what what the energy in this world is really supposed to be.
Mm.
Because when I had that happen to me one time, I was like, "Wow, that is such a beautiful feeling." And that's what I wish for everybody. I wish for everybody to meditate and know their true self, because when you know your true self, there's the world is open
Mm.
to you.
Authenticity.
Hmm.
It's interesting how authenticity theme keeps coming up with people I talk with. It's important.
Well, it is, because we wear this mask that we want other people to see. But how
Right.
many people are you completely bare honest with? It's very hard to find people that you can be that way with, without that aren't going to criticize you. But I'm
Mm.
old. I'm probably way older than you. I'm old enough that I really don't care anymore what people think about
Right.
me. Not even my
Yeah.
kids. You know, they're going to have to learn themselves.
There's freedom in that. I've had a few incidences in my life where there's about four people that I care what they think, but soon I'll get to zero, like yourself. Also, another point about being honest with others. Many people had trouble being honest with themselves. That's
Oh
first.
yes. I know I did make a meme about that. I
Ah,
somewhere in there, it's a meme and it says, sometimes the hardest person to be honest with is yourself.
it's yourself. Yeah.
Because I've talked to many people who just, they lie to themselves. A lot of people do that.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
brutally honest with myself, even in my flaws.
Mm.
And I have many, but I see them. I try to work on them.
Yeah. There's a big difference between confidence and arrogance.
Yes, very much so.
Sometimes when you lie to yourself, that's where the arrogance comes in.
And it's funny, it's like a double-edged sword because if you have to lie to yourself and be arrogant, that means you're not really confident.
At all. Yeah,
Right.
the opposite, the actual
Yes,
opposite.
it is the opposite. Mhm.
And how do you measure success, Yvonne?
By happiness.
Again.
By, again, when I was younger, I wanted a big house. I wanted this, I wanted that. And I am so, for years now, I've realized none of that matters.
Right.
None of that matters if something's wrong with one of your kids, if everybody around you is suffering. No. What matters is happiness. What matters is everybody's okay. Everybody's happy. And again, like I take myself, even though I am in pain all the time, I still have so much that I can do to help people. Even if it's just talking on the phone because somebody's sad or depressed, I could do that.
Mm.
And I really think that success is love, having someone to love, being loved. And again, I don't believe this whole thing about people say, um, I'm lonely. There's a world of millions of people. There's no reason to be lonely.
Mm.
None whatsoever. Go out and help somebody.
And love is energy, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's one of the highest form of energy. I think love and peace are about equal.
Just discussing it, Yvonne, puts myself just makes me deep a little, breathe a little deeper. It makes me calm. It makes me it's just so healthy.
And that's one of the things that I strive for is I
Mm.
want to be able to be that person that walks into a room and automatically calms people and raise their energy. That's my wish for myself and everybody around me. I mean, some people have told me that I'm calm, but I do have a tendency to get excited, you know.
Sure. I could see both of that in you.
Hmm.
Yeah. When there's some great reason to be excited, we do so. I mean, celebrations are certainly in order and they're healthy. And uh, such a pleasure to speak to you, Yvonne. I read your stories. I liked them so much. And my goodness, if I could write like that, I don't know what I would do. Never have to reread anything. It's just everything is. It's not too long and it's not too short, and it conveys everything. And I find myself, you said that you write the way you speak, and I get now that I think about it, it's true because when there was a period, I would find that I would pause as if you were speaking and then continue to read, not just kind of go on. I'm talking about the two, nonfiction short stories. Um, and they just seem so, for short stories, they seem so detailed in the names of the friends. And um, I really enjoy it. I would keep it up. I look forward. I'm going to get into the first book. I'm going to, and maybe we'll have another discussion. Thanks so much for your time today. How can we get in touch with you?
Oh, I can just send you an email with my phone number or my email.
I'll put your website down.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Yvonne Garcia
Zaher.
Zaher,
Dot
and your
com. It's easy.
Facebook.com. Yeah, you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram. We'll put the link in Amazon for your book. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Maybe one day we'll, have a face to face and have a cup of tea.
Oh, that'd be great. I'm wanting to go to Chicago soon. I am going to try. I'd like to
Very
go over
good.
there. It was a
I,
pleasure.
it was a great pleasure. You be well, and hope to see you soon. Keep up that great energy, please.
Thank you. You too.
Will do.
And you have a great voice.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information. The video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Would you like to financially support the podcast? You can go to our Patreon site. Consider $5, $10, or $20 a month. There's all kind of plans that we have there. There's like a one-time payment. What is this podcast episode worth to you? $25, $50, $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000. You be the judge. You can go to our PayPal account to do that as well. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pinz Disciplined Conversations.